Hello and welcome to another Sonic Lab. Today we have David Åhlund from Roland, who has come in with the brand new TR-8S, which was released or announced only a matter of days ago. And we're very lucky to have one here, though we should point out this one has got a few funky labels on it because it's a pre-production model.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So the main thing, I mean, there are quite a lot of differences, aren't there? So perhaps you could just sort of take us through some of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it already has everything you had in the TR-8. So all the ACB stuff, the analog circuit behavior kind of modeling of vintage Roland drum machines. So you have the modeling version of the 808, 909, 707, 727, and 606.
Right.
So the expansion that was with the TR-8 is also already there. So you have all those things. But then we also combine that with sample playback as well. So you can import samples into it and put those on the kits and mix that with the ACB stuff.
Right, okay, and you've also provided 300 samples that come with it, which has got some CR78 aspects, because I know a few people were asking about that, but there's a whole bunch of other samples in there as well,
Yeah,
right?
There's all kinds of samples, more modern drum sounds or old school drum sounds or vocals and all kinds of stuff.
So I guess a lot of people are going to want to know about the sample specs. That's the big one, right?
Yeah, so you have 600 seconds of internal sample memory. So you can also get, of course, hence 300 seconds of stereo.
All right, so it does mono or stereo.
Yeah.
And the stereo just requires a single playback channel. It doesn't require two, so that's...
Yeah, exactly.
And what about sample rates?
So it supports all the major sample rates, 44.1, 48, 96, and even up to 192.
Ah, okay. And they come in just on the SD card, or can you bring those in via USB as well?
You could do it both ways.
Ah, okay. Right, that's handy. So, I mean, aside from that, the layout is quite different as well. We've got no green, it's squarer, and there's an effect per channel as well, right?
Yeah, so you have, apart from the normal send return effects, the reverb and the delay, you also have one so-called M effects or insert effect on each channel. So you can have a distortion on the kick and a chorus on the snare or whatever you feel like throughout the whole drum kit.
Well, maybe if you start kind of showing us what it can do, we can go through some of the features while we're going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, we have the normal TRX step recording here. So I'll start with a basic kick here, and then just add a few sounds, some claps maybe, and then...
Has that got the internal reverb, or is that the reverb on the...
No, that's the actual unit's reverb.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so now we have that done the basic step way, and then we can do instant recording, which is real-time recording, right, but just playing the pads also. Maybe we can add a little bit of shuffle as well. And now I have some other stuff here. We got a bass. We have controls here. Actually, the control knob here is assignable, so to every sound you can set whatever you want it to do. So you can choose from all the different sample parameters.
Ah, okay.
So you can set it to be a filter or a pitch or, essentially anything you want.
And what's this button do here?
Yeah, so this is the little tap button. So this is basically a velocity-sensitive little trigger pad. So if I choose the ride symbol here, I can just play it with velocity sensitivity.
Oh, that's a neat idea. I've not seen that done before.
Yeah, so we'll just go... well, actually, we did have that on the TR-808, similar, but it wasn't velocity-sensitive. It was just a big tap button. So we'll just choose instant record again, and we'll put some rides. And now we have those in there. Quantized and ready, of course.
So we got that. We've also got a lot of these variations, because that's something that's quite interesting, that allows you to kind of create multiple variations of the patterns, right?
Yeah, and not only that. I mean, first of all, you have 8 variations instead of 2, as in the TR-8. But on here, you can actually you can edit one whilst playing another one. So I'll just play A now, and then we'll go to the TR-X, but we'll hold the TR-X button and press B. Now it's actually editing B whilst playing A. So if I make like a long snare fill, just really basic here, and now when I play B, it goes to that fill.
Right.
So you can always edit the next thing before it's playing. Which
and I guess the thing is you might use this in a way whereby those are the patterns that you would use within a particular track or a particular section.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes the most sense. But of course, you can just use them as normal beats. I did a fill here, but actually you have a separate fill-in button as well. So you have 2 different fills and 1 scatter effect for each pattern set, so to speak. So this means, in this case, I'm gonna, let me just add a vocal sample just to get it moving a little bit more. So I just put like Okay, so now we have that and some vocals. Here we go. Okay, so now we have a vocal sample over there.
And that's in one-shot mode rather than kind of just trigger mode. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you can still adjust the decay. The decay is a really quick way to just shorten the length, for instance. So if I just wanna... Or you can just assign the control knob to be the hold time of the sample as well. So that's another way of doing it.
So we got the fill-in as well, which is automatic.
Yeah, exactly. So
is it tasteful? Is it tasteful, David?
Well, it depends on who you ask. So I mean, we have a fill-in button here, but you also have auto fill-in. So you can set it to do a fill-in every 2 bars, 4 bars, 8 bars, and so on. But you can also trigger it manually. But what I think is pretty cool. Sorry, let me just add a snare here to get it moving a little bit more. Okay, so now we have that sample going. I'll turn up the decay time. Okay, so now the cool thing about the manual trigger is it doesn't necessarily have to play the whole bar. So you can set it to be latched as a normal fill, which means you press it and then it does a fill.
Right.
Or you can have it momentary. Momentary. I mean.
Right, yeah, I see.
So you can just press the button and then it plays the fill for that short amount of time. So I have chosen, okay, fill number 1 here, and now I can just do that in a momentary way. So just playing this. That was the whole bar, but like that.
Is that something that is user assignable, or is that an autofill? Do you program that fill, or is that the fill that it generates?
No, you program the fill.
Okay.
So yeah, you program it just like you program a pattern. So you have 2 fills that you can program, plus the scatter effect, which is more kind of automatic.
So I mean, with those variations and the fills over, you can create some really quite complex things going on. What about stuff like per track? End step and that sort of thing. Does it do polyrhythm, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing actually, because we have the last step setting now per channel. So you can say like the kick has 16 steps, the snare has 15 and so on. So if we keep the basic rhythm, but maybe we want to do something different with the vocals, so just press the last step for the vocal track. And now you can see it's 16 steps, but let's say I want it to be 7 or something odd, okay, which makes it quite interesting sometimes. And I'll just turn it up here. And now you can hear the kind of polyrhythmic. Or we can add it also to this little chord, this little minor chord here, if we want to set that last step to be step number 5. And so we have a hit on 3. This is going to be even more odd. Yeah. Now you see the chord playing this. And the vocals.
All right, so the polyrhythm stuff is... Okay, so, so that's all of that stuff. I mean, I did ask you about whether or not it does time stretch and that sort of thing. It's just a basic sample playback. It's not doing...
Yeah, but you can still pitch it and you can still add a lot of different editing parameters like filters and envelopes and stuff like that. So
these are all coloured. Can you assign the colours how you want? So you could always have your kicks in red and what have you. So.
Yes, you can. So that's actually a kit setting. If you want to, you can also have it as a fixed system setting. So we'll just go into the kit settings here. And way down here, we can find color. And I'll just press enter. And now we can actually adjust the colors with the faders like this.
Very pretty.
Yeah, very pretty and very easy.
So, I mean, that might be, because I noticed that in the videos that you did a whole load of Berlin session videos, which were actually really interesting because a lot of people were using it in the kind of fader right up, just using it for performance mode and bringing in samples and sections, and that really worked very well. So that kind of color coordination would really help.
It's really helpful, especially when you're mixing drums with, vocal samples and stuff. So I like to say like, oh, all the vocal samples are green, so I always know like to bring in the vocals there, and the kick is red and so on. So you have like your own kind of mental organization of the colors.
Well, I mean, performance, it's all about muscle memory, isn't it? You
exactly.
Want to kind of recognise that. And I also know that we've got motion recording as well, so parameter recording, and that's per track. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Maybe show us how that
of
works.
course. So all the knobs you see here essentially can be recorded into the motion memory, and the whole motion playback can just be turned on and off with a switch here as well. So if we just go back to normal here, I'm turning all the levels up. Okay, so there we have the pattern, which is back to normal now, and we'll start doing some motion recording. So we have the motion record here, and now let's say I want to do some filtering on this little vocal bit here. So we'll just have. Okay, so I'm gonna just start tweaking around and record. And you can hear nothing has happened because the playback is not on.
Right.
So if I just switch this on, now it's going to play back the recording.
Oh, that's quite useful. So you have quite a massive transformation of the overall thing just by switching it on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then exactly. And then also you can, if we add a bunch more stuff, let's say. I'll just turn the vocals down because they're getting annoying now. And then we'll just play around with I like to always play around with the decay on the hi-hat, for instance. So we can do some of that. And now you get the hi-hats more kind of animated as well. And combine it with this one. Then you can mix it around. And of course you have a mute button here as well. Just switch the mute mode on. And then you can just easily turn the channels off like that. And also...
Yeah. So, I mean, as I say, a lot of people just fling the fader up and get it kind of going that way.
Yeah.
So the motion record is, each track has 3 parameters, but the control parameter can be anything of, a bunch of other parameters that are just whatever.
Yeah, basically any instrument edit parameter like filter or even effect settings and stuff like that can be assigned to the control element. And also that is actually really easy. So I just hold the control select button here and I'll turn the control knob that I want to assign, which is this one in this case. And now we can see the different parameters I'm scrolling through here. So you can do bit reduction, attack, blah, blah, blah. You have basically all of the sound design parameters directly accessible just by doing that.
And again, they would be something that you could automate as well.
Yeah, of course. So anything that is assigned to the control knob will be...
Doesn't record the fader movements though, does it?
No.
Okay, so it's just those.
Yeah.
Okay, and we should just rewind a bit and get back into maybe some hardware. Inputs and outputs and USB audio interface, that
there's plenty of connectivity on this. That's one of the coolest things. So you have the USB connection with USB MIDI and USB audio interface with multiple channels. And also, actually, the separate outputs, we have 8 audio outputs. 6 of them can be used as separate outputs for like your kick or snare and things like that. But you can also use them as trigger outputs. Oh,
so you could send like different clocking type things to like a modular system or other drum machines and have multiple clock types.
On top of the trigger, the dedicated trigger output. So in total, that could give you 7 trigger outputs. You can also use it as a DAW separate outputs as well.
All right, so it becomes, because it's an audio interface, you get access to those individual. So you could, in a live situation, maybe if you were running Ableton Live and you had this synced to that, you could have some stems going out of there as well as some individual drum sounds.
Exactly.
Right.
So you can send the drum machine, like the internal TR-8S, you can send it through the master output, but then you can send your DAW stereo track or whatever it is through a pair of the other ones.
Right, that's quite powerful then, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a really great live tool for any type of performance or production as well, of course. But for live, it really shines because there's so many instantaneous functions that you can just, access immediately by just pressing one button or like a secret combo or something like that.
So in terms of the internal memory and the patterns, how many patterns can you store in this thing? So
you have 16 banks. Each bank has 16 patterns in it, and each pattern has these 8 parts with the 2 fills.
Should be plenty. And if you were, because as far as I understand it, the SD card is used to load samples into the internal memory.
Exactly.
If you need to, completely swap out the memory, is that kind of quite a long load time, or is it quite quick?
Well, it does take a little bit of a while. So I would recommend, if you're doing a live set, I would recommend to have
Tell some jokes.
Yeah, either that or just have the samples all neatly organized in one backup.
Okay. So. the USB, I mean, most Roland stuff isn't class compliant, is it? It requires a driver, so I'm guessing it's the same for this as
correct.
well. Okay. And is this compatible with the IRA, what's the mixer called, the MX1?
MX1, yeah, and the IRA Link concept we have, yes. So if you have an MX1 mixer, just the USB cable, and as usual, you get your audio and your synchronization just through that cable.
Sweet, okay. Yeah. And also, how many kits can you have in this?
Up to 128, and you get, I think it's 79 presets that it comes with.
So you've got your ACB voices, you've got the 300 samples that are in it, and you've also got that 600 seconds of time. There's an external input as well, isn't there? And can you run effects on that and whatnot?
Yes, exactly. So there's an external line input, which actually can be used as one stereo or two mono. And then you can apply the send return effects here, the reverb delay. You can apply that how little or how much you want to the external input, and put sidechain compression on it as well.
So you could get a vocalist in there if you were really at a pinch as well, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, if you... Well,
you need a mic preamp.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you have those effects on there, and also there's a master effects section as well, which you can instantly switch on and off, and you have a control knob here you can assign to any parameter of the master effects as well. So there's like modulation like flanger and phaser and stuff like that, but also distortion. So here in this case we have, I think it's a flanger. So you can just drop that in now.
Like turnaround effects, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also set the level of the master effects when it's on, so you can set the balance properly so it doesn't get too loud or too silent.
And that's all stored in a sort of per pattern or kit set.
Yeah, that's all stored in the kit.
So everything can come back kind of, as you rehearsed it. And
yeah, exactly. And every kit has its own reverb and delay and master effect settings. So once you call up a kit, you get all those settings immediately.
This is looking pretty impressive. It sounds like you've really done quite a lot of work on this whole sort of ecosystem. I guess we should find out how much and when.
Yeah, so it's actually already available this month, and official price is €699. So in pounds, that would be somewhere around 600.
Yeah, well, they haven't released the final thing, and it's $699, I think, isn't it? It's
yeah.
That as well. Okay, I think you were going to hook something up before we go and play out, right?
Yeah. So I mean, talking about the external input here, I just want to put my little TB03 in here, and we'll put some effects on it, and then we can also trigger it using the trigger output, and everything is still coming out through the master here. So really convenient for a live setup.
Excellent. Well, before you set that up, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
That was a Sonic Lab presentation featuring the Roland TR-8S with David Åhlund from Roland. Thanks very much for watching.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay, so one of the cool things you can do here, right now we have a TB03 and a little sequence in here. And I'm going to trigger this sequence step by step using the trigger output from the TR-8S. So trigger input, press play, nothing happens because it's now waiting for a trigger. So this is my trigger in this case. And we'll just start building something.
Brilliant. That was good.
Awesome.